Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for day two of Wellbeing in the Law Week here at New Jersey Lawyers Assistance Program. Each day this week, we're exploring a different dimension of well-being. But first, what exactly is well-being? Well-being is more than just the absence of illness or stress. It's a dynamic state of being healthy, engaged, and satisfied with life, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. It allows us to show up at our best selves for our clients, our colleagues, and our communities. At NJLAP, we look at well-being through six dimensions: emotional, physical, spiritual, social, intellectual, occupational. Each one matters, and when they work together, we flourish. Today, we're focusing on spiritual well-being, an often overlooked but deeply essential part of what it means to be whole. Legal professionals tend to spend so much time focused on deadlines, logic, and service to others. But it's just as important to pause and ask, am I connected to something greater than myself? Am I living with purpose? Spirituality, in many ways, is what helps us make sense of all the chaos. It's what anchors us when everything else feels unsteady. It gives us meaning, direction, and hope. And in a profession that often demands resilience, having a strong inner life is not a luxury, it's a necessity. At New Jersey Lawyers Assistance Program, we're here to support attorneys, judges, and law students in all areas of their well-being. That includes things like mental health, substance abuse, gambling, burnout, emotional distress, and spiritual disconnection. Sometimes our clients come to us just not with anxiety or addiction, but with a deeper sense of feeling lost, like something's missing. They're successful on paper, but struggling inside. NJLAP provides a safe space to unpack those feelings, reconnect with purpose, and find their footing again. Because we believe healing isn't just clinical, physical, or mental, it's also spiritual. So, what does spiritual well being really mean? It doesn't necessarily mean religion, although for some it does. At its core, spirituality is about connection to yourself, to others, to nature, to your values, and for many, to a higher power. One author put it beautifully: spirituality is the art of being fully alive. It's what helps us feel present, whole, at peace. It's where we go when logic isn't enough. It's what keeps us going, even when life is hard. Um, for me, spirituality became real when I had to reconnect with myself. I was struggling with alcohol and mental health issues, and the truth is, I felt disconnected from everything. I had forgotten who I was. There's a phrase that I hold close to myself. It's the opposite of addiction is connection. I didn't need to find myself, I needed to return to myself. And in that process, I found God, not out there, but in here, within me. And God has always been inside me. I was just too blinded, too distracted by things that didn't represent life, love, or truth. And when I finally let go of those distractions, whether it was substances, false identities, or fear, I began to see again. I began to feel again. And that's what I knew. Spirituality isn't something I had to chase, it was something I had to clear space for. Spirituality isn't about chasing something outside of you, it's about coming home to what's always been inside of you. So today I'm honored to moderate this conversation and introduce two individuals who bring powerful, grounded, and hopeful perspectives to the idea of spiritual well being. They each come from different paths, but share a deep commitment to human growth, healing, and truth. Our first speaker is Cedric Ashley, a coach, trainer, and facilitator who uses evidence based practices to help individuals and organizations thrive. Cedric holds degrees from Rutgers University and a Master of Divinity from Drew University Theological School. He's currently pursuing a master's in happiness studies, a testament to his lifelong commitment to well being. As the founder of Cadasco Inc., Cedric wakes up every day driven by one mission: to make people's lives better. His legal background is extensive. He's been a prosecutor, a private attorney, and even served as editor in chief of the ABA's GP Solo magazine, where he authored a column on balanced life theory. He's also been a leader in diversity, equality, and well being initiatives within the legal profession. Most importantly, Cedric understands how spirituality, leadership, and inner clarity intersect, and we're lucky to have him with us today. Our second speaker is Jim Greene, also known as the Hope Guy. Jim has spent over 30 years as a crisis counselor and brings a unique, powerful perspective of someone who has walked through clinical depression twice and come out the other side stronger, more grounded, and full of purpose. Jim's story is one of resilience. As a young man, he struggled academically and emotionally, including challenges with ADHD and alcohol use. But through the support of others and his own inner work, he found direction, earning degrees in psychology and Catholic theology, and even training for priesthood at one point. He now uses his story to inspire others with a message of hope. Hold on, possibilities exist. Whether it's in healthcare settings or on a stage, Jim reminds us no matter how dark life gets, light and healing are always possible. So with that, I'm excited to turn over to our speakers as they share their insights. I invite you to not to listen with just your mind, but with your heart. You might hear something that speaks directly to your own journey. So please welcome Cedric Ashley, and thank you again.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So, going to provide just a kind of an overview of let's just get this PowerPoint up here. Don't worry, it's not going to be PowerPoint by death, but a decent number of slides to move us through the conversation. And I mean, for the time we have today, this is really awareness. Can give you a little bit of some action, what you can do to sort of improve your spiritual well-being. But it's as with anything in change and sustained positive change, it's a much longer journey to get to achievement. So we're really just touching the levels of awareness and some action items that may be helpful to you to get to a better place in terms of spiritual well-being. There's however you have in terms of however they tell you, I think it's probably in the Q&A. If you have questions or whatever, drop them in the Q&A. And I definitely will try to get them as I go along, and hopefully we'll have time for Q&A at the end of the overall presentations. That's me, you're a nerdette. You already know that. So here's for this presentation, my agenda is exploring what is out there about spiritual well-being and trying to create a pathway towards achieving more spiritual well-being. And as I said, if time permits, questions. So let's get right into it. So let's jump into some, as James mentioned, the model they follow at New Jersey Lawyers Assistance Program is the six dimensions of well-being, which is comes out of I won't say comes out of, that may not be their source, but it aligns with the ABA Pathway to Lawyer Well-being report in 2017, where they looked at occupational and various other things that you will see throughout this week. And one of the keys or one of the dimensions is spiritual well-being. So the first thing I will say is I always teeter between how much I want to stress it and how much I don't want to stress it. But as we look at spiritual well-being, so all the dimensions of well-being are significant. And the goal is to thrive in all dimensions of well-being as best as possible. There's always this up and down thing, and you'll see from one of the slides I have that this is a continuum in it. And there are times when we're going to be thriving more in one area, we may be just maintaining or struggling in another area. So they're all important, and the goal is to thrive or to achieve the highest level we can in each of the domains, and they're equally important, and they work together. I do believe that spiritual well-being, as it relates to meaning and purpose, and I think even definitionally, if we look at certain aspects of it, meaning and purpose is potentially the driver or the tip of the spear or the GPS or the North Star of other dimensions of well-being. They all are interactive, and to the extent that, if physical well-being, if your health is not as well as it should be, if you're racked with pain, obviously that's going to impact so many other things. Uh, but at least with spiritual well-being, there is this cohesive purpose and meaning to your life, and this cohesive purpose and meaning to how you can achieve well-being in other areas. So I kind of do put that as the tip of the spear that guide us and direct us in other areas of well-being. So the ABA report from 2017, even if we look at their definition of spiritual well-being, developing a sense of meaningfulness and purpose in all aspects of life. So if we're developing a sense of purpose and meaning in all aspects of life, all domains of life, that means we're also trying to have a cohesive uh, sense of meaning and purpose in all other domains of life, of well-being as well. So it's going to touch upon intellectual, physical, everything else. So this spiritual well-being is less about, it can be for some, it can be organized religion, it can be some other type of, less organized religion. It can be a number of things, but when it's all said and done, I do believe it's also, a recognition of, there's power in something greater than ourselves. I mean, all you have to do is, you know, an example is just stand at the shoreline, and just watch the waves go in and out, waves go in and out, waves go in and out. And just imagine, that's the same shoreline if you were on the Jersey Shore. That's the same shoreline that, depending on where you were standing, that in 2012, when Superstorm Sandy blew through, there was a storm surge of who knows how many feet. So there's this definitely this awesomeness of something other than ourselves as human beings. And the question becomes, how do we align our purpose and our meaning in life coexisting with or coexisting within this larger uh really awestruck life that there is. And it's not necessarily the meaning and purpose in life. That's a bigger or larger philosophical question that as lawyers, there's so many other things we have to do. We probably don't have time for that. But it's meaning and purpose of the life, that we have, or how do we give meaning and purpose to life? So ABA, we're all lawyers here, journalists, so the ABA has something to say about it. Developing a sense of meaningfulness and purpose in all aspects of one's life. It's not just the ABA. If you look at a where I finished just will be graduating tomorrow with my master's, the Master's in Happiness Studies from Tal Ben-Shahar, Centenary University Happiness Studies Academy. This is another model of well-being that has five elements. Occupational is built into spiritual, which condenses it by one. But spiritual well-being is also an element of this model of well-being. So I'm just going to go through a couple models just to show that it's not out there on an island by ourselves, as the ABA report or the methodology or practices of New Jersey Lawyers Assistance Program, but spiritual well-being is significant in a number of models, right? And then we'll do some action steps, right? So with the Tal Ben-Shahar model, there are two elements. There's a purposeful life, and then there's ordinary. The ordinary is extraordinary, is elevated to the extraordinary through mindful presence. So there's a purposeful aspect to it, and then a mindful presence aspect to it. It's the second element, that extraordinary through mindful presence, could almost be viewed as a flow experience. Like, how do we get into an engagement or in something that provides such engagement that we're singularly focused in on this particular thing in a flow experience, right? How do we just take advantage? How do we just, going back to the shore example, how do we just be present in the moment and just hear the waves, coming in and out, and the roar of the ocean, the power, the ripple of the waves, the little seashells or little crab-like thing that may get blown in, the little bird that runs away from the waves as they hit the beach. So just being caught up in the moment, being present, being mindful, without judgment, without assessment, without any of that, just realistically, just taking it all in. So that spiritual well-being from the Tal Ben-Shahar Spire model has two elements. Then we have flourishing. Martin Seligman, who's kind of I won't say the grandfather of, he's definitely the grandfather of the positive psychology, the formal movement around the late 1990s. There's some that preceded him. So even that model of PERMA has meaning, the causes and pursuits you find worthwhile and meaningful. So we've got what, three now? We've got the ABA report, we've got Tal Ben-Shahar, we've got Dr. Seligman's flourishing model, and we've got the Army, like the war fighters of the world. I mean, and I think this is one for me that really is significant because it says I mean, there's obviously so much that's developed from the U.S. military, whether it's, uh, technology or technology or internet types of activities, drones, all kinds of things from the military. I won't say specifically the Army, but from the military. But to the extent that the main focus of the military is protecting the nation, um, and being the war fighters, to the extent that they've incorporated into their resilience model this spiritual readiness, the ability to endure and overcome adversity by finding meaning in our life experiences, deriving meaning and purpose from serving and belonging to something greater than ourselves, self-transcendent purpose, knowing who we are at our core and developing our best traits. Now we have, a whole cross section of entities or industries or organizations that view spirituality or spiritual well-being or spiritual readiness or purposeful living as significant to one's existence. Kind of makes sense because if you're, somewhere in the, you know, deepest regions of wherever in the middle of the night, waiting for resupplying, other than the mission, why you're there, what the mission is for that particular deployment, you really have to also get a sense of mission for deployment, uh, purpose and mission for deployment, purpose and mission for team, and purpose and mission for self, meaning and purpose for self. Why am I here? Cold, shivering, hot, whatever it may be, in service to this team, in service to this unit, in service to this division, in service to this army, in service to this country. What is it for my existence? Why am I here? So meaning and purpose as high and an esoteric it could be or could seem to be is really helpful in grounding one, particularly as it relates to overcoming adversity and resilience. If you are grounded in who you are and what your purpose is in this moment of your life, it is much more easier for you to overcome, easier, not necessarily easy, but easier for you to overcome setback, adversity, um, tragedy, trauma, as it relates to resilience. And for me, resilience is a little quick piece. Metaphorically, resilience is a rough anchor in the seas of life, rather than anchor in the rough seas of life, resilience. But well-being is more of a North Star guiding the way. Like that's a way of life. So resilience can be a response to life. Well-being is a way of life. And the more we develop our resilience, the more we develop our well-being, the more we'll be resilient when we need to draw upon resilience. And part of that is being anchored in like, what is my purpose here? What is my meaning here? What is my mission here in this stage of life? Right. So summarizing it, it's living a meaning and purpose-filled life and being fully present in the moment of life. Right. So I use these, I've gotten to the place of happy faces and one words rather than long definitions, flourishing, thriving, maintaining, struggling, surviving. Happy faces, if we were, what's the level of pain? These are obviously not pain indicators, but flourishing, big grin, thriving, smile, maintaining, flatline, struggling, little frown, surviving, or really, really sad, or sad, but a saddish looking emoji. So, trying to determine where are we on this continuum of practicing and developing spiritual well-being. Are we flourishing? Are we thriving? Are we retaining? Are we struggling? And understanding this is a continuum. And even if we have honed in, I'm just making up, my purpose for this season of life is blah, 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 blah. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be hit with something that's going to cause it to drop a little bit. Like, okay, I've got to take care of whatever. I'm hitting this physical well-being space or relational well-being space or whatever well-being space or domain. And and it's taking a lot in drawing upon my spiritual well-being such that it's dipped, somewhat, right? So, you can take a note of this, take a screenshot of this, but at some point in time, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. Where would you rate yourself as it relates to having a principle and core practices of spiritual well-being? And then what is your basis for that, right? And then what would it take to move it to a number 4 or 5? For me, we're trying to thrive and flourish. Flourish is great. We're not always going to get there, but we want to level set at maintain and higher, right? And what we can do, and I don't know if these will be posted at the website or how you'll get access to the slide, but if you need to, just take a screenshot and take some notes. So what we'll do is as we want to move from whatever number we are at to that higher number as high as possible, consistently as possible, got a couple writing prompts, very short, very simple, to move us through there, and then some goal attainment tips for you to get there, right? So wherever we are, if we're not high at that level of thriving and flourishing, and if we're there, how can we possibly even, get hired to bank some energy so that when the event does happen, it's going to only take us down a notch or two. So the change or future state in the well-being domain of my life is what? So it could be and I'll give you a chart showing you an example. It could be I want to solidify purpose and meaning. Like I'm really kind of, know where I'm headed, but I'm not totally sure. So I really need to narrow down or hone in on having clear purpose and meaning in my life. depending on how many the ages of people on here, you could be children could be out the house. Now you're saying, okay, I'm sort of in my second phase now. What's next? I'm no longer just rearing the kids and taking care of them through college and this, that, whatever it may be. Or you could just be starting out, you know. So wherever you are in your life, you know, what is it that you would want to improve in the spiritual uh, well-being domain of your life, right? So that's writing prompt number one. It's only six, right? In order to achieve change, I jumped up with this because it's so important. You know, whenever we're trying to achieve change, we're focused on what's not working and we want to get to what's working. It's so important to focus and celebrate on what is working. So if you have regular practice, if you have mindful practices, if you are involved, because the interesting thing about some models of spiritual well-being is not the ABA model, and I should stick with that because that has occupation outside. But occupation is one thing. Purpose and spiritual well-being is also related to calling vocation, right? So you may work at X, Y, and Z agency as a lawyer, but your passion could be, you know, getting off at whatever hour you can get off at to participate in the after school program. Could be the being the coach at the high school football or basketball team. Could be running mentoring programs with young law students or whatever it may be. So occupation and what pays the bills and what one defines himself tidily is one thing, but calling and vocation can overlap, but it's not always the same, right? Calling a vocation could be, I work here because I have wonderful benefits, wonderful salary, and it allows me to um, care for my flex schedule allows me to care for my grandkids. Don't know, making it up, but whatever it is in the spiritual well-being space that you're seeking to change, take a moment to inventory and celebrate what's working. Because if we only focus on what's not working and where we want to get to, the change process is that much harder. We have to celebrate. This is, for me, it comes from the space of appreciative inquiry coaching that we really need to appreciate what is working in the moment, right? So meaning or significance. So this is sort of like, you know, which came first, the chicken or the egg. Within any change process, I'm always trying to help the client or student or workshop participant understand the significance of what they're seeking. Because if you understand the significance of what you're seeking or the purported significance of it, it'll provide clarity. And that clarity will either help you uh, it'll either gain clarity on it, or it will confirm it, or it will correct it, say, no, this is not really what I'm looking for because I really got to the significance, meaning, or mattering of it, and it doesn't align with the outcome. So what I thought I was looking for is really different, or what I thought I was looking for is very clear. So just trying to find the significance of the change or future state that you want, ideally is for alignment of well-being, uh, the spiritual well-being domain, and thus alignment with the other well-being domains, so that there's congruence, right? And congruence and alignment in your overall well-being plan, right? So number four, what barriers or obstacles may you overcome um, to achieve greater spiritual well-being, right? So you can predict out what may happen. So if we're thinking spiritual, if you're thinking specifically purpose and meaning, could be a barrier is I'm so busy at work, I'm always going to put this off. I'm never going to have time for it because I'm busy, busy, busy. But if you begin to think, well, but if defining or having a better idea of my spiritual well-being will help align this occupational side or some other side of or dimension or domain of your life, it's worthy of putting the time in. So it's just beginning to realize, okay, this could be a barrier, this could be an obstacle, taking care of the kids or again, working late hours, other obligations you have. But to the extent that if spending time on this will help to reorder or rightly order those other things, it's worthy of putting time into this. So identifying what those barriers may be so that you can then set up sort of a pathway around through above uh, those barriers, right? So it's writing prompt number four. Writing prompt number five is a waypoint. And I'm going to give you an example of this in the couple minutes I have left. So the way power and the willpower. So it's not just a commitment. Ah, I've got the willpower. I want to do it. I want to do it. It's really a way power. It's really about behaviors and habits, um, and routines and rituals that will assist you in achieving the change from current state to future state. So the willpower is important. I'm committed. I want to do it. Rah, rah, rah. But how will I do it? And then finally, the celebration of it. So, and really celebration along the way. So it's not just celebration when you believe you've achieved a greater sense and even a definitionally written out purpose and meaning and mission statement. It's not just a celebration at the end when you've achieved it. There's little steps on the way. One step on the way is celebrating that you took time out today at 10 o'clock this morning to 11 or so to spend time on this. And to the extent you took out, the same hour every day of the rest of this week, that's a celebration because you could have chosen agency, choice. You could have chosen, well, agency, control, choice, your ability to choose. You could have chosen not to take this time. So that's a celebration. If you completed any one, even if you didn't complete all six writing stems or prompts, if you just started to thinking through, yeah, in this season, what's my meaning and purpose, in this season, right? And if you've, written any of them down, that's a moment to celebrate. Celebration is essential to the change process, right? It's not just to, I mean, it is for feel good, but it's not just some new age woo-woo thinking. Like it is significant important. I mean, just think of it. Let's just think of celebration or affirmation compared to either nothing or negative feedback. I mean, what is it like going into the office every day when there's nothing positive that's said, negative environment? It's always you could have done this better. Why didn't you do it this way? Why didn't you do this? I mean, that's not an environment or think of sports. I mean, what is it like to have a coach to say we're never going to win we're never going to win the big game, and when to the extent that you get a win, we could have done it better, and it's not good enough. Celebrating will help, you know, buoy or leverage uh, the um, the mindset really and the energy that you need to go from current state to future state. And finally, so three or so or four or so quick things on the science of positive change, sustained change. So if we're trying to determine what or find out more about purpose and meaning in our lives, going through those six writing prompts. The doing of it is one, small goals. So, just write briefly, just explore, what are the things that are interest to me, right? What makes me alive? What do I wake up to every day, whether it's for pay or not pay, whether it's where that I would do, whether it's for pay or not for pay. What am I naturally drawn to on a regular basis. So it could just be getting a little journaling or noodling or idea generation around that. You don't have to say, okay, I'm going to write my mission statement. Between now and the end of the week, I'm going to write my 30-page mission statement, 3-page mission statement. I just want to write. I just want to write for 1 minute, right? We talked about your meaning, your why, your rationale, so I won't repeat that. The action, you've got to figure out how are you going to do it, right? What are you going to do? What activities will you undertake in order to uh, further develop your spiritual well-being and what your spiritual well-being plan is? And then we need prompts, uh, reminders, cues, and triggers, right? Those are the things. So the prompt can be, I'll read it and then I'll actually show you in chart form, right? And then we need celebration. We talked about that, the feedback loop, right? So what does that look like? So imagine that my spiritual well-being, this slide is looking at the second element of spiritual well-being, being more mindful, being more present in the moment. So my goal, what is my goal? I really want, because I'm busy, I'm doing all this lawyering stuff, and right now I'm thinking about tomorrow, and I'm thinking about the motion calendar and this return date and that, or whatever, the deal, the closing, whatever it is that you may do, the legislation, if you work for a town or government that the council wants to pass, or whatever it may be. And then I'm thinking about what I've got to do, um, you know, afterward. So just being more present in the moment and savoring the moment, right? So that's the goal. All right. So Boom, we got the goal. Okay, that's the what. The rationale, because I really want to appreciate the now more and spend less time in the past and the future, because we always spend time in the past and in the future. So, all right, that's the why. That's the rationale, the meaning, the significance of what I want to do. Um, and then the how. Well, how will I do it? Okay, well, I'm going to take a 20-minute walk in the park. I'm only going to bring my phone for emergency reasons. I'm not going to put it on, and actually, I'm going to turn it off and put it on airplane mode. And unless I fall out and have a need to call out, it's not going to ping. It's not going to do anything. Right. So that's the how. And then what's the reminder or the prompt, the cue or the trigger? I'm going to do that immediately after I eat lunch. I know somebody is on here. Oh, what do you eat lunch? Who has time to eat lunch? Well, now we've got to set up a cue and trigger to eat lunch. But hopefully you're eating something. And the cue could be, midday. Cue could be 12 noon every day or whatever it may be. But you're going to do this, at least with this plan, immediately after you eat lunch. And your timing is you're going to do this daily. And always never beat yourself up when every day becomes less than every day. When something pops up that all of a sudden, whatever it is in life that prevents you from doing it on a day, you just pick it back up the next day. So the timing is daily. And then celebration feedback, the immediate celebration feedback is give myself a high five when I'm done and have my afternoon tea. This is just sort of a hypothetical, obviously. And that's the loop, the feedback, celebration, the feedback after you do the activity. And then obviously you can hit milestones. Oh wow, I've just hit a complete week of walking. I'm gonna put a star on the calendar if you still have a paper calendar. I'm going to put it as a reminder, celebration, annual celebration, seven continuous days, or whatever it may be. So some type of uh, celebration and feedback to close the loop. That's what it could look like if you are focusing in on uh, spiritual well-being as really some mindfulness, being more present, taking the extraordinary into the extraordinary into the extraordinary. And obviously, when you are walking, it could be just seeing the trees, the leaves, the birds, hearing the bird songs, the bird calls, all the different things that you can be in the moment and observe. And lastly, if we're looking at spiritual well-being from a meaning and purpose standpoint, another sort of how to get there, to have a more fulfilling and rewarding job, career, calling, whatever it may be for you. Sometimes it's a job, sometimes it's a career, sometimes, wow, I'm really pursuing a calling. A rationale because I'm really no longer satisfied in my daily work and I need to find a renewed sense of joy because this is paying the bills and paying the bills sufficiently and paying the bills and I don't have any more bills and it's paying for whatever else I'm paying for. But it's killing me. Right. So you could each day, here's an action. Each day for the next 30 days, I will journal and reflect about what aspects of work brought joy and stress. Right. So this is the both the joy and the stress, or that was happy or unhappy, that was satisfying or unsatisfying. So you're getting a balance. You're not just droning on about, I hate this. You're in the process, you're also celebrating. So doing some journaling. And that's just a sort of a beginning step. Again, you don't have to go out and start a new career immediately, just beginning. And it could be 3 days, it could be one day, uh, it could be however long it takes to begin to get a sense of what you believe you are truly called to do in this moment. And you will do this for 30 minutes immediately after eating dinner. It could be 30 minutes before breakfast. It could be before the day begins. This is just a prompt, a cue, a trigger. Could be after you did your walk. It can vary. And then the timing is daily. And then, simple, but mentally is powerful. Giving yourself a high five, whether it's in the mirror or to yourself or whatever. Do a little celebration dance in the mirror. And then I said, have the soothing cup of tea. It's not like I'm a big tea drinker. I was writing this is what the, the, the uh, idea, idea called for. So, so the key is not just, trying to tell you, which is awareness. It's really trying to give you something that's actionable that you can really walk away from and say, all right, I've got some tools I can use to, to try to achieve more spiritual well-being in my life. And it could be this is just two examples. It could be, yes, participating more in formalized religion or spirituality practices. whole host of things. So that's it. Here's my contact information. You could screenshot it again, connect with me on LinkedIn. You got my email, you got my phone. If you want to further work on this, feel free to reach out to me. And I will turn it over to James. And I will stop sharing the screen.
Thank you so much, Cedric. Really great stuff. I also want to congratulate you and, happy and proud for you. You're graduating tomorrow. It's
Thank
all
you.
good
Thank you.
stuff. So second speaker, please welcome Jim Greene.
Okay. Am I unmuted?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, good, good. You can hear me. That's a good thing. Well, listen, I'm Jimmy Greene, the Hope guy. I want to thank James and Noreen, for inviting me here today. And certainly I learned a lot from you, Cedric. Congratulations again on another a degree tomorrow, man. That's awesome. So I'm here today basically as the Hope guy, right? Hope stands for hold on, possibilities exist. I've learned that over the years. Now, why am I the hope guy? Well, I'm the hope guy because I not only learned, about psychology and depression and anxiety and so forth in college and so forth, and even in the seminary, for instance, or I also lived it. So we all get hope by H.O.P.E, hearing other people's experiences, right? So to go back, hold on, possibilities exist. And we all get hope, you and I out there, by H.O.P, hearing other people's experiences. So before I get into my 10 spiritual wellness tips, which I'll get into in a moment, I have in my life been a counselor, psychiatric screener in emergency rooms for approximately almost 30 years. So in that time, I interviewed hundreds, maybe a couple of thousand people. And my goal was always to give hope. See, when someone comes to an emergency room, the main thing is they're looking for hope, right? Many of the most, I would say 90% of the patients that I saw in my some 27 some odd years, let's just say, in the emergency room at Jersey City. I worked at East Orange. I worked in Montclair. I worked in St. Mary's in Hoboken, which is my hometown. So why am I saying this? Because again, we're living in times right now where we all need hope. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of fear. My job again was to give hope. Now, what I said in my own life, you could have all of the love around you, which I had. I had my wife. I had my children. I had my family, my extended family. But if I told you, I don't know, 2017, let's say, I got so depressed that I couldn't function. I couldn't work. I could barely get out of bed. It was all I could do to take my kids to school and my wife to work. And the shame and the guilt just continued to mount. And when you're talking about spiritual despair, right? Here I was, a person who spent most of his career, professional career in healthcare, giving people hope. Now I needed someone to give me hope. My wife was there for me, but again, you could have all the love around you, but if you don't have hope, you're in a dangerous spot. But here's the thing, and then I'll get into my 10 spiritual steps. You don't need a degree to give people hope. Every day, what I loved about what I did and my passion and purpose and meaning, as Cedric spoke about earlier, I knew I had an opportunity to make a difference every single day. So that was what kept me going. See, if you do what you love, right? And you guys out there, if you're really passionate about law, man, You're not working. You love it. That's one of the first things I ask students these days. I asked them immediately, what's your purpose? What do you want to do in life? I just saw a kid the other day at the gym, right? Just, the Lord leads them to me. And I say, Lord, every day, lead people who need help to me now that I'm semi-retired, right? The kid says to me, look, I'm studying business, just like that. Well, when somebody says it in that manner, I know from reading people that, I don't know if he's passionate about business. You've met people like that. I've met people like that. Maybe you're like that right now. Maybe maybe I needed to make a change in life if I was doing something I wasn't passionate about. So then I asked him, I said, what is your passion? And he hesitated for a moment. He said, well, my passion is fashion. I said, well, great. I said, so your parents have, go to school for business. You're going to school for business because your parents are doing it. But I said, if your passion is fashion, you need to finish perhaps your business degree, and then you need to go to FIT in New York or some place like that. Correct? So this is how we give people hope every single day. There's 86,400 seconds in a day. We have 86,400 seconds where you or I or anybody in the New Jersey Law Assistance Program can give each other hope. Now, last thing on the hope thing, hold on, possibilities exist as an acronym. You and I get hope, once again, H.O.P.E, hearing other people's experiences. And why do I say that? AA, NA, GA, all of those groups are spiritual programs, but yet they have a program that you work, like Cedric was talking about. You have to have action. You have to take action, because even in my faith, right, the Catholic faith, St. Paul, right, he said faith without actions is like a body without breath. So when I talked to, just as an aside, when I talked to this kid, hopefully I think he went and did that. A few days later, he came up to me and said, I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to go to FIT after I finish my business degree. So that's a little bit about me, but it's not really about me. But most people, I was telling the staff, James and so forth, most people listen to the radio station WIIFM as an acronym. What's in it for me? And by way of a funny joke, is Coach Holtz used to say to his players and to other people when he speaks, don't tell people your problems. 80% of the people don't care, and the other 20% of the people are glad you got it. So it's really, like, again, what Cedric was saying earlier, it's having an action plan. What works for you spiritually? One of the greatest quotes I ever heard about religion versus spirituality. Now I'm a devout Catholic. I was in the seminary for 2 years at Seton Hall. I got my master's there in pastoral ministry and so forth. Obviously, I left after 2 years. I'm married with two beautiful children, one of whom is going to graduate in 2 weeks, and the other one's a nanny, right? They're 23 and 21. The time flies. But so, again, coming full circle, right? I'm an ADDer, right? So I just lost my train of thought. Some of you guys out there are ADDers too. But let me just say this about the spirituality, right? The quote that he said, I was at a conference, and it was a Catholic priest who said it. He said, religion is for people who are afraid of going to hell, but spirituality is for those who've been there. So a lot of you out there have been through hell, whether it's alcohol addiction, drug addiction, gambling addiction, yada, yada, yada. I've seen most all of it. But what I can say is that YAA and NA and things like that, spiritual programs with a higher power, if you don't say God or, higher power, just say, is that when a person enters that program and decides, not to decide is to decide. A lot of people say, oh, I'm going to go away, or I'm going to go to detox, I'm going to go to rehab, but they never do it. They don't decide. They decide, but not to decide is to decide. So that's what I'm trying to say today is, those programs are successful because everything, when you go in the rooms, you're getting hope by hearing other people's experiences. When you sit in there and you say, this guy lost his let's say law license. This one lost his wife. This one lost his car. This one's eating out of a garbage can. It's all loss. When I would say to people is spiritually wise, look, you have only always two options. One is you can stay where you are and not take action. As Cedric said, you have the action plan, right? Or I could say to you, look, I'll send you to Florida, spend a week or two there, get out of Dodge, stay there, go into the follow-up program. They're all spiritual programs. They're the most successful on the planet, and that's why. So that being said, just a few quick quotes. Prayer, okay? Now, in the Catholic faith, we have saints for everything, right? If you lose your keys, you got St. Anthony. You have a hopeless case, we got St. Jude. St. Michael, patron saint of protectors, so forth. So one of my favorite saints, little Italian guy, his name is Padre Pio, right? He said, prayer is the oxygen of the soul. Let me say that again. Prayer is the oxygen of the soul. That's why it's recommended daily. Now, if I could, what I did most in my career to help people was not so much. I was an active listener. I would listen to the problem, right? That you have to be an active listener. Certainly, in your profession, when you have a client come in and they're telling you about what they need for you to represent them, of course you have to actively listen. You can't be here and there and distracted like a lot of us are today with the phones and there's too many. So like again, to refer back to what Cedric's saying, you got to eliminate some of those distractions. It's very important, right? And spirituality is one of the ways we do that. Now, my prayer routine might be different, or my spiritual program might be, this is mine. I might go to mass every morning, or try to go as much as possible. I certainly, I pray the rosary. As a Catholic, this is a meditative prayer. It's the same prayer, over and over. All right. It's scripturally based. Okay. So that's one thing, but that's me. I never say to people, look, you have to do this. I never said that in my career to somebody, you have to go away. No, if you want what they have in those rooms, you go to a meeting, go to an NA meeting, go to a AA meeting, go to a GA meeting. Thousands of people. I have people, my wife can attest to this, and I'm not bragging because my father taught me not to be a bragger. He's a firefighter in my hometown of Hoboken with his three brothers, also firefighters. Listen, it's just, that's the way life is. It's just that way. Life is, you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, you're going to be up and out, over and out. Well, who said that? Frank Sinatra, right? That's life. I've been up and down and over and out. It's kind of the sign of the cross. If you think about it, I've been up and down and over and out. And that's where he was in life, right? So here, let me say this, okay? It's not rocket science, spirituality. It's not, I'm not a reinvent the wheel guy. I gave most of my patients I gave them self-help tips. Behind me, I have a ton of books that, just simple things, day by day, prayer books and so forth. But I don't have to get into that. But here's what I want to do. I read a book and went to Seton Hall with my dad to see this man who I'm going to give 10 life practices. And I'm going to give credit, of course, where credit is due. His name is John Powell, S.J., which stands for Society of Jesus. Now, when I studied for the priesthood at Seton Hall, I was going to be there 4, maybe 5 years. I studied Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, St. Thomas Aquinas, St. Augustine, all of these guys, right? Even in the 2 years that I was there before I left. But to become a Jesuit in the Catholic Church, it takes 10 years. So I equate them to they're like the lawyers in many ways of the Catholic Church, the Catholic faith. It takes 10 years to become a Jesuit. And so the man that wrote this book is he's deceased now. This book came out in 1989. It's called Happiness is an Inside Job, 10 Spiritual Practices to Achieve Inner Peace. And again, just some random thoughts, right? So Let's see. First one is, all right, so 10 spiritual practices for inner peace and happiness. These are assumptions he made, right? And again, in his speech at Seton Hall when my dad went, this book changed my life. Now, I've recommended tons of books to people, and perhaps in another presentation we'll do that as well. Just like Cedric is putting forth things like that. I'm doing that as well. So he starts off by saying the basic premise of the book, just to begin, okay, because you can get this on thrift books for $5 now or whatever. Happiness is an inside job, always has been, always will be, right? So here's the thing. H equals IJ. Happiness is an inside job. The premise of the entire book, and I'm not going to be a spoiler alert, but he says basically, to the extent that you or I reach outside ourselves, sex, drugs, gambling, whatever it might be, that the thing that we go towards outside of our spirituality, to that same extent, he said, you and I are doomed to failure, right? Let me say that again. The basic premise of this book, happiness is an inside job. I'm telling you, anyone out there who's looking for inner peace, read this book if this is what the cover looks like. The premise of the book is this. It's very simple. Again, we got to get back to basics sometimes in America. Or just in our lives. We got so many distractions that we overcomplicate. We have to simplify, right? Simplify, simplify, simplify. Like mindfulness, like Cedric was saying, going to the beach, taking the breaks when you need them. That's part of spirituality, right? So he starts off by saying practice number one is, or his assumption number one rather, is happiness is a natural condition. You and I, we generally tend to want to be happy. Now, when I was clinically depressed, there was no way I could be happy. Now that's a mitigating thing. That's beyond what normally a person is going to endure. But if you're not clinically depressed, you and I have the ability to both achieve happiness, but it's got to come from within, not out. It's not. I've interviewed hundreds of people. And you look at the celebrities, you look at the stars, they got the money, they got the fame, they got the women, they got the men, they got the homes, and it's still miserable. Why? Because they're looking outside, like you said, inside. That's number one. Number two, he says, number two is we must accept ourselves as we are. I often told my patients, acceptance is the key to all my problems today. Like I said, as a counselor, I was not immune to getting depressed myself. So, but I'm now a wounded healer, right? A wounded healer. That's another great book by Henry Nouwen, another theologian I read, The Wounded Healer. Okay. You can take your woundedness, heal from it, and then help other people. So that's number two. We must accept ourselves as we are. Again, we're talking about the book, Happiness is an Inside Job by John Powell, Powellsj. I'll finish up quick. So number three, we must fulfill our needs. This is, again, something that Cedric was saying. We must fulfill our needs for relaxation, exercise, and nourishment. That's mind, body, and spirit. Like before I was here this morning, I was at the gym. I prayed, I was at the gym, and now I'm here. Right. So that's number three. Practice number 4 of 10 is we must make our lives an act of love. Let me say that again. We must make our lives an act of love, right? When people came to me for help, like as I said, in the emergency room, I knew instinctively from my own lived experience and also from what I studied that, man, when someone, most 90% of the people that came to me didn't have hope, they wanted to die, they were going to end their lives. And my job was to give them hope. Now, you don't need a degree to give hope, as I said earlier. But let me tell you, you can have all the love around you, and maybe some of you can relate out there. And I've run into myself. I had all the love around me, but I still almost lost the battle to despair. Okay. Now, practice number 5, spiritual practice for obtaining happiness and inner peace. We must stretch by stepping out of our comfort zones, right? We like, in order to be great at anything, you have to be willing to get up in Carnegie Hall and do the singing or playing the instrument, or, I mean, when I was playing football, right? It's uncomfortable to watch a ball come down as a punt return or a kick return. Some of you might be able to relate. They're coming down at you. They're barreling down. You're gonna get hit at maybe 30 miles an hour, right? But what was my job? Get out of that comfort zone and say, look, get comfortable being uncomfortable, Jimmy, because it's coming down and you got to catch the ball. That's your focus, not the 11 guys coming down. So that's a little bit of an example of stretching out of our comfort zones. A lot of people want to just stay in mediocrity. If you're going to be a 1%er, you don't hang out with 99%ers. And that's not to denigrate people who just like to some people like that job thing, right? My mentor, Les Brown, is a great motivational speaker, right? He's 80 now. He taught me that J-O-B, job, stands for just over broke, right? So the 99%, sometimes we don't want to do it. But when you really want to do it, a 1%er, he or she manifests that and says, they're the type of people, right? They walk in the boat store, they don't look at the price, and they say to the salesman, I'll take that boat. And they say, don't you want to look at the price? Don't need to, right? So that's a little bit about comfort zones. Now, this one I love. Number 6, and I'm going to finish up in about 2 minutes. So 6th practice is we must learn to be good finders. Let me say that again. We must learn to be good finders. You see, today, with social media, man, I'm sorry, I'm just being real. I'm a Hoboken guy, Hudson County, Jersey City guy. Man, let me tell you, there's a lot of people out there that say things, on social media that are, in your profession, maybe it's libel, slander even, I don't know. How many people do you know that are good finders? I try to be, because that's what the Lord calls me to do in my life. Now, that's part of being it. When you look for the good in somebody rather than the negative, that seems to me to be the way to go. But again, I tried. Now, is it always possible? No. There are certain individuals in society that, will never be people that we see good in. But, that's up to, that's between them and the man above, or the woman, the man above. So now this one is my favorite. Practice number 7 from the book, Happiness is an Inside Job to Find Inner Peace and Happiness is we must, he says, John Powell, S.J., now deceased. We must seek growth in life, not perfection. See, let me say it again. It's very important to get this one. We must seek growth, not perfection. See, as hard as you or I may try, right? Perfection is not attainable. So seek growth. Growth is, taking action to make oneself better. I remember I was at the rest stop, John Bon Jovi, and they used to have the New Jersey Hall of Fame going down the Parkway here in New Jersey. And there was, I wish I could remember the definition of arete, which is basically like self-actualization, like, becoming the best you that you can be. So don't seek perfection. It's not attainable, he says. Seek growth instead. That could be taking extra courses. That could be, getting used to being spiritual. Spiritual. It could be like, going to the beach. Sometimes I just go to the beach. That's my happy place. Or I go fishing, or I just, practice that every day. Like I said, for me, it might be going to mass in the morning. Then it's, praying the rosary. Then it's listening to AC/DC. or whatever I rap that I used to like rap, Run DMC and things like that. Music is a big thing that makes us happy too. One speech, by the way, as an aside, before I finish up, one speech that this time of year you see a lot of commencement speeches. They're all over YouTube. One of them I highly recommend is one that Denzel Washington gave a few years back called "Put God First." Right, and he says at the end, "I hope that tonight when you go to bed or you go to sleep, you put your slippers way under the bed. That's so you can." At the end of the day, when you can put your slippers under there and get on your knees and thank God for another day. As a former emergency room worker, I can say that one of the things that kept me in check was, man, every day I saw people come in there that thought, hey, when they got up that morning, this ain't my last day. Well, you know what? Sometimes, a lot of times that was the case. So just to conclude, okay. We must seek growth, not perfection. Number 8, we must learn to communicate effectively. Now, obviously, to this audience, I mean, you've been taught how to communicate effectively. I'm certain of that. Priests, sometimes, or seminary students, receive training in that as well. While I'm on that, one of the things, again, that I do daily is the first 30 minutes of the day will dictate your day, right? So prayer, I listen to, motivational people, all kinds, right? You got Les Brown, you got E.T., Eric Thomas, calls himself the hip-hop preacher. He's excellent. So these are people that you can look to. Now, one of the channels is called Motiversity. And again, we'll perhaps have another talk, and we'll do that as part of the spirituality and growth. What's the next one? Number 9 is we must learn to enjoy the good things in life. Cedric again was referring to that. Practice mindfulness. Stay in the moment. It's hard in our fast-paced world. Now that I'm semi-retired, I mean, like I said, I did it for almost 20, 30 years. Of all the things I've lost in 30 years, I miss my mind the most, right? And you guys too. So it's finding balance. Mindfulness to me is one of the better things to do out there. So that's to take action, right? And finally, he says we must make prayer or something spiritual part of our daily lives. It's like it's akin to being an athlete. Like, I'll give you one quick example. You have to have a program, and you got to work it, right? If you're an AA or NAGA, you got to work the program. So just by way of example, as I get close to conclusion here, when I was playing football in high school, my senior year, I was a captain. And I lived in Hoboken, right? So there's a place called, they call it Sinatra Drive now, because Sinatra, of course, was born and raised and baptized and all that in Hoboken. So one day when I stopped hanging out, it was in maybe August, and a pretty hot night. And my friends were all partying, hanging out on the pier, and I had given that up a few weeks prior because, so I'm running around Sinatra Drive. If any of you are familiar with Hoboken, it's like a windy road, right? So anyway, back then, we all hung out there. I'm running by them, and they're looking at me, and I have a 50-pound weight vest on. And they're like, dude, what is the matter with you? It's 75 degrees, 80 degrees at night, and you're running around with a 50-pound weight vest? What is going on? And I said, listen, I got plans for September. We're playing our arch rival, St. Peter's Prep, across town. And you know what? So, it paid off, because in that first game of my senior year, first game ever played at Caven Point Field in Jersey City, we were fortunate to defeat our crosstown rival 13-9. And I came away, I got lucky. I had 2 touchdowns over 95 yards. One was a kickoff return, and one was one from scrimmage. So, there was a lot of praying that went into that too. So those are my 10 tips taken from, again, the book Happiness is an Inside Job. One of, again, Jesuits are like the lawyers, the tough guys in the Catholic faith, certainly well educated. Takes 10 years to become a Jesuit. So success leaves clues, folks. I think that might, like, again, I don't know how much time I have. I don't want to take too much time. Real quick, in addition to that book, Happiness is an Inside Job, there's another author out there for people with codependence, addiction issues, gambling, and all that stuff. His name is John Bradshaw. This is what I did with a lot of my clients and patients over the years. So I would say, look, let's just take this book, read it, put it into action. Just like Cedric was saying, you got to have an action plan. So John Bradshaw wrote a book called Healing the Shame that binds you. Shame and guilt, two of the biggest killers for both myself and my patients. Over the years, I noticed that big problem. There's another one called, Healing Your Inner Child, right? So this is a quote from John Bradshaw. Now I think I'll end, be ending shortly. Okay, so John Bradshaw, the spiritual quest is not some added benefit to our lives, he says, something you embark on if you have the time or inclination. Rather, he says, we are spiritual beings on an earthly journey. Our spirituality makes up our beingness. He also wrote, again, John Bradshaw. I think he's a former priest, actually. He left the priesthood and he's deceased also now, but he did many talks for people with addiction, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, all these. So excellent author, many books. So, but this is what he says about self-help books. He says, John Bradshaw, he said, many self-help books give you these neat, tidy formulas that are really illusions. They dupe people into thinking, well, if I could just do that, then everything's going to be okay. My work differs in that I don't offer quick solutions and simple explanations. So sometimes it's not going to be simple. God writes straight with crooked lines. Again, life is not easy at all. Like David Goggins is another one. He's got a lot of salty language in his talks, but anyway, he's great. All of those things are great. Spiritually, physically, emotionally. Okay. You go out and if you do these things every day, like I said, Jim Rohn said it best. You either run the day, right? Or the day runs you. Jim Rohn, run the day or the day runs you. Our first 30 minutes of the day are going to dictate how your day goes, spiritually, physically, emotionally. Okay. And just as the end, I would say this. It's like a call to action, as Cedric said. The best thing to do is to pay things forward. This, like, I have my father's card. You know how they give out the card at the funerals, right? Patrick J. Greene Sr., right? So, this is my uncle, rather, my godfather. It said, the prayer of St. Francis, and I'd like to finish with this. He says, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. St. Francis of Assisi in Italy. So that's all I have to say about that, folks. I'm Jim Greene, the Hope Guy. You can see me online, and hopefully I'll come back and speak again. I'm sorry about the raspy voice. I was at the Yankee game yelling at Aaron Judge on Saturday. So have a great day, folks, and go out there and make a difference. Pay it forward. Thank you very much. Jim Greene, the Hope Guy, signing off.
Thank you, Jim and Cedric, for sharing your heart and wisdom. We hope today's session has inspired you to reflect, reconnect, and realign with what matters to you most. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at 1-800-246-5527. Thank you again for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow as we explore the next dimension of well-being.